Some people never really rise in life. They stay on the ground. They're scared. They choose safety over growth. But some people, the moment they rise even once, they start believing they don't belong to the ground anymore. And that's exactly what Icarus is about. This isn't the story of a kid learning to fly. This is the story of a human being losing to that voice inside that keeps whispering more. Because sometimes the fall doesn't come from failure. The fall comes from too much confidence. And today, on Myth Mirror, this is the story of how a single rush of excitement can burn an entire life down. Icarus's father was named Daedalus, and Daedalus wasn't just some ordinary guy. He was an engineer, an artist, an inventor. If he lived today, people would call him a genius for sure. He'd have a YouTube channel, and people would watch his designs and comment things like, "This man is insane." Daedalus had hands that were smart enough to bend reality itself. But that intelligence, it didn't save him, because Daedalus worked under King Minos. Minos was the king of Crete, and he ruled through fear. He gave Daedalus a mission: build me a structure so that whoever enters can never escape. And Daedalus built one of the most terrifying things in history: the labyrinth. The labyrinth wasn't just a structure made of stone. The labyrinth was the mind itself. Turns, dead ends, looping back to the same place again and again. It's an ancient symbol for everything still experienced in human psychology today. And inside that labyrinth lived the Minotaur, half human, half bull, a monster. But the Minotaur wasn't only a creature. The Minotaur was a reflection of the dark side people suppress inside themselves. Daedalus built a prison for that monster. But here's the irony of fate. Daedalus built the labyrinth so others couldn't escape. And then he got trapped inside the very thing he created. King Minos said, "You know this secret. You're the only one who knows how to get out of the labyrinth. So you're staying inside too." And Daedalus was locked inside the labyrinth with his son Icarus, father, and a son inside the most complex structure in the world, surrounded by cold stone walls. No sky, no horizon, just stone. And time moves differently in a place like that. A person's hope slowly rots away. And after a while, a thought starts repeating, "There's no way out." That's where most people end, and life works the same way. At some point, people get stuck in a job, in a relationship, in a life. The walls start closing in, and the voice inside says, "You can't get out of this." But Daedalus's mind refused to accept that voice, because for some people, a prison isn't the end. It's the beginning. One day, while walking through the labyrinth, Daedalus watched the birds. They were flying freely, and in that moment, something simple clicked. King Minos could control the land. He could control the sea. He had soldiers. He had ships. But the sky? The sky was the one place even a king couldn't own. And Daedalus thought, if there's no exit, we'll invent one. That sentence, that's one of the greatest powers humans still have, because real freedom isn't waiting for a door to open. It's creating your own door. Daedalus began collecting feathers, the ones he could find in corners of the labyrinth, and he found wax, and slowly he built wings. In that moment, a father was preparing to gift the sky to his son. But here's the critical part. Daedalus didn't build wings. Daedalus built hope. And Icarus, when he saw those wings, his eyes lit up. Because that's what youth is like. Youth wants freedom. Youth wants flight. But youth doesn't think about the price of flying. In Icarus's mind, there was one thought. I'm not human anymore. I'm going to be like the gods. And that's where the breaking point begins, because when Daedalus handed those wings to his son, he didn't speak like a father. He spoke like a wise man. He said, "Icarus, listen to me. You won't fly too low because the sea's moisture will weigh your wings down. And you won't fly too high because the sun's heat will melt the wax. Stay in the middle. Keep the balance." And that's not just flight instructions, it's life instructions, because life works like this too. If someone stays too low, life swallows them. Their fears drown them. But if they fly too high, their ego burns them. Balance is one of the hardest tests for a human being, but Icarus didn't understand that in that moment, because a young mind hears a warning, but it doesn't feel it. And sometimes a person has to burn to truly understand. Then the day came. The wind was right. Daedalus strapped the wings to his back, strapped them to Icarus, and together they rose from the top of the labyrinth into the sky. Two humans emerging from stone walls, flying like birds. Below them, the labyrinth grows smaller. Below them, fear grows smaller, and the sky grows bigger. Icarus started laughing. For the first time, he felt truly free, and in that moment, a voice wakes up inside. "I can do this. I can make it." That voice is dangerous, because after a while, it turns into something else. "I can do anything." And that's where a life starts to crack. Daedalus flew with balance, middle height, careful, focused. But Icarus wanted more. He climbed a little higher, and the higher he went, the faster his heart beat. The higher he went, the stronger he felt, because the higher a person rises, the more they forget how small they really are. Icarus shouted, "Dad, look, I'm flying." Daedalus shouted back, "Icarus, keep the balance." But Icarus wasn't hearing him anymore, because success can sometimes shut a person's ears. And after a while, advice starts to feel like an obstacle. A father doesn't look like a guide anymore. He looks like a brake. And Icarus thought to himself, "I'm not just flying. I'm getting closer to the gods." That sentence might be one of the most dangerous sentences in human history, because the desire to be like a god burns a human being. Icarus kept rising. The wind hit his face. The sun blinded his eyes. He passed through clouds, and in that moment, he felt like a legend. But the sun isn't only light. The sun is also a boundary, and whoever crosses the boundary pays the price. As Icarus climbed, the wings began to heat up. The wax softened. The feathers loosened. But Icarus didn't notice it. Because when a person gets drunk on a scent, they don't see the warning signs. While the heart is beating with "I won," the body is screaming, "We're burning." But that voice is easy to ignore, because that voice calls a person back to reality, and reality feels heavy to the ego. Then one feather fell, then another. Icarus paused for a moment, but then he climbed again, because he didn't want to go back, and suddenly, one side of his wings collapsed. Icarus spun in the air, not like a bird, like a stone. Fear arrived, but it was too late, because some mistakes can't be fixed, some choices can't be undone. Icarus struggled, but the wings were no longer wings, they were just scattered feathers, and then he fell from the sky into the sea, not like a star, like a disappointment, and the sea swallowed him quietly, as if he had never lived, as if he had never flown, as if nothing had happened. But for Daedalus, everything had happened. Daedalus turned back. He couldn't see his son. There was an emptiness in the sky, and that emptiness turned into the emptiness inside a father. Daedalus shouted, "Icarus, But no answer came, only wind, only waves, and when Daedalus looked down, he saw a few feathers on the surface of the sea, just a few feathers. That's what some losses are like. A whole life disappears, and all that remains is a few traces. In that moment, Daedalus understood. He didn't just lose his son, he lost his own creation too, because the wings were his work, and that work had become his son's grave, and the story doesn't end there. The real point starts now. Because this story isn't really about Icarus dying. This story is about Daedalus surviving. And sometimes surviving is heavier than dying. Icarus isn't just a character. Icarus is the impulse inside us. Icarus is that voice that shows up after success touches the skin even once, the voice that says, more. Icarus is that sneaky craving that whispers, just a little more. A little more money, a little more attention, a little more power, a little more approval, a little more risk. And sometimes people don't even realize there's an Icarus inside them because Icarus doesn't look evil. Icarus looks exciting. Icarus looks like freedom, but Icarus's ending is burning because Icarus's problem wasn't flying. Icarus's problem was having no limits. People make the same mistake today. They rise a little, and then they start believing they're invincible. An investment hits. A video blows up. A relationship feels perfect. A business grows, and the mind immediately says, I'm untouchable now. But life doesn't like untouchable people. Life teaches everyone a boundary. It teaches some people gently. It teaches some people harshly. It taught Icarus harshly because the sun doesn't show mercy. The sun only burns. Daedalus's story is heavy too because he lost his son, but he still had to keep flying. Just imagine that. Wings exist, but the sky isn't freedom anymore. It's a nightmare. Because every flight brings Icarus back. And maybe Daedalus thought, if I hadn't built those wings, maybe my son would still be alive. But here's the truth. Icarus didn't die only because of the wings. Icarus died because of the fire inside him. And that fire is sometimes fed by success. Daedalus's curse was this. He gave his son freedom, but he couldn't teach him how to carry it. That's why some fathers, some mothers give their children everything, but can't teach balance, and life burns them. This myth says something simple. Freedom isn't a gift. Freedom is a responsibility. And the question becomes, what is the sun? Everyone's sun is different. For some people, the sun is money, fame, power, control, success, perfection. And the more someone feels like they're getting close to their sun, the more valuable they think they are. But the sun doesn't get prettier when it gets closer. The closer it gets, the more it burns. Because a human being has limits. And when that limit is crossed, a person loses themselves. Icarus's wings melted, yes, but what really melted was his identity. Because at some point, he wasn't a son anymore. He wasn't even a human anymore. He just wanted to be the one who rises. And the rise swallowed him. The greatest message in the Icarus myth is balance. Balance is boring. People don't like balance because balance isn't dramatic. Balance doesn't give an explosive feeling. Balance doesn't make anyone say, wow. But balance keeps people alive. Most people today want this, either massive success or nothing, massive love or nothing, massive money or nothing. This is the disease of the modern world, either peak or trash. And that mindset is the Icarus mindset. But life doesn't love the people who live at the peak. Life loves the people who know balance, because balance is maturity. Balance is wisdom. balance is knowing yourself. And as this story ends, there's one final thought. Maybe someone rose once in life. Maybe something was achieved. Maybe a door opened. Maybe an opportunity appeared. And in that moment, stopping felt impossible. A little more, the mind said. I have to rise higher. And maybe something burned. A relationship, a friendship, health, peace. Because some rises demand a price. And sometimes that price is the most valuable thing there is. Icarus teaches this. Reaching success isn't the hard part. The hard part is staying human inside success. Because everyone wants to fly, but very few can fly without losing themselves in the sky. And maybe the greatest strength isn't flying the highest. Maybe it's staying at the right height. Icarus rose into the sky, but he moved too close to the sun, and the sun didn't burn his wings. It burned his patience. And now, one question remains. Is there an Icarus inside? And if there is, what is it whispering right now? A little more? A little more? A little more? Sometimes salvation isn't wanting more. It's learning to stop. Because some people don't fall. Some people burn. And the person who burns leaves behind only a few feathers. In the next Myth Mirror episode, another human truth will be discovered hidden inside another myth. Because myths don't tell stories about gods. Myths tell stories about the human inside us.